Hello and welcome to another edition of Luminar Coffee Break. I'm your host, Vanelli. Now, joining me today is my co-host, Angela Andrieux. Hello, Angela.
Hello, Vanelli. So good to see you.
Good. So today is our wrap-up, and it's for new people, New Artist Friday. What are we working on today? What do we want to show them?
So for New Artist Friday, we typically like to do some quick tips to help new users get more acquainted with Luminar AI. And I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite human-aware tools inside Luminar AI and explain a little bit more of what that means. Vanelli, what are you doing today?
Good. On my end, what I want to do is I want to show people how to use or how to make an image appear sharper. And there are so many different tools we have that deals with sharpening. And some of them you're going to look at and think, well, wait a second. The word for that is structure, not sharpening. The concept is still the same. It's the appearance or the illusion of making an image look sharper.
Awesome. Those are great tips as well. Do you want to kick us off or should I go first?
I'll kick us off. So here we
All
are
right.
with my good buddy Lewis. Now, here's a good example. Here's sharpening. We're going to work with the details, first of all. I'm going to turn this off. And by the way, when we're doing this, it's very important to make sure that you constantly use these toggle switches to turn the effects on and off so you can have a better representation of what you're seeing, all right? Now, as always, when you're dealing with stuff like sharpening or denoise, try to zoom in to 100% so you can actually have a live view of it. So here I am with Lewis. I'm going to take the sharpening off. Now, I'm going to take the sharpening and bring it all the way to 100. Now look at that. So look at his skin. Look what it's doing to it. So that's way overboard. That's giving it a real, like an over-processed type look. So let's take sharpening back. Instead of hitting with a sharpening tool first, let's come over here to the details. And as the names imply, small, medium, and large details will deal with those specific areas in the image. Now, to make it real quick, down and dirty, you're a brand new person using this, you'll come in, grab the medium details, and just crank that up. There it is. Here's before, there's after, all right? So let me pull in a little bit more so you can see it one more time. Before, after, all right? So boom, that's an instant, hey, I made my image look sharper. Now you've done it for so long. All right, Vanelli, what's the next tip you want me to do with it? Here you can take the larger details and again, experiment. Take them all the way to the max to see what it's doing. And you can also take it to the negative side. So with larger details, I like to bump it up just a little bit, not as much as the medium. Now, here's where people get into trouble. These small details are very powerful. Watch, if I crank it all the way to 100, are you able to see that? Yeah, look at that. Look how horrible it looks. So, if that's even a word, Angela. So here, here instead, we could take this, and I could actually apply a negative value to it. So most people don't realize you can use these with a negative value easily, and what that's going to do is take the small details, the fine details, and blur them just ever so slightly. That combined with making the other ones, by bringing out the details of the other ones, actually gives you a very pleasing image. Look at this. So before and after, I'm happy with it. And then of course, since we haven't processed the image, we'll use our Accent AI just to bring out the image even more. All right. So again, that's where details come in. Now, Angela, what I did do is I did pull up our Luminar user manual. All right. So, and we can pull it up right from within inside Luminar. So if we click on Luminar, help, boom, user guide right there. And on the user guide, if you want to have the technical definition of what each of these are doing, It's right here. Just type in details and it'll come down here. Now, since this is New Beginner Friday and we don't want to overload your brain, remember, if you're just starting out, you want something to look sharper, jump right into medium, crank that up. You could even just take sharpen and move that up maybe 10, 15%. But this will tell you exactly what it's doing. And an area we didn't touch base on, which you could do when you're ready, is click on the advanced settings and then look at what detail masking does and what sharpening masking does. So without getting too technical, like I said, I would come in, I want this to be sharper, just come right over here to details. Here we are. Turn it on so you can see it. Crank up the mediums. If you're feeling a little adventurous, maybe a little more with the large, a little more or a little less with the small. And that's not all the time. I'm giving suggestions. And then if you want, bring up the sharpen. And there you have it. And now you have a very pleasing image. All right, Angela, what do you think on that?
That was great. I think one of the things that we don't use often enough is moving the sliders in the details section to the left. And I'm always moving them to the right. So need to incorporate that into our workflow a little bit more.
Great. All right. So what do you have for us?
All right. So I have an image here that we're going to look at two of my favorite tools that are human aware. So this is my after image. And here's the before. And all I did was I actually skipped over templates. I went straight to edit. Let me go ahead and reset these adjustments. And we'll go to right click, adjustments, and revert this to the original. And we'll do a little bit of work here. So the first one is Enhance AI. And Enhance AI is actually kind of a conglomeration of over a dozen different tools. It analyzes your image. It's human aware, so it recognizes that there's a person in this image. It looks at all of the other elements, and it makes adjustments accordingly. If you use Accent AI on an image that's too bright, it's going to pull back on the highlights. If you use it on one that's too dark, it's going to bring up those shadows. It's looking at the image in the different tones and making adjustments using that AI technology. So with it being human aware, it's going to protect skin tones and make humans look more balanced in the image. So let me go ahead. I'm going to bring this up really high so you can see what it does. You can see it just balanced out the exposure. It opened up the shadows. And honestly, at 100, this looks great. I'm going to take a look here at the before and the after. I really like what that did. Now, my second favorite human aware tool is Structure AI. And again, it protects those skin tones, whereas a typical structure tool that applies structure to every pixel is going to take those skin tones. It makes a very crunchy look. It makes things look very artificial. Kind of like if you were to take that small detail slider that Vanelli showed you and crank that all the way up. It just adds a grittiness that for most uses is not pleasant. So it takes that out of the equation. It recognizes that there's a human. It also recognizes water, sky, clouds, and applies an appropriate amount of structure. And structure is mid-tone contrast, which gives the appearance of additional detail. And again, here we have a positive and negative amount. If I move that all the way to the right, you see everything get more defined. And you see if I take this on and off, that our human in the image is preserved. It's not making much of any change to him at all. You can see a little bit of added detail in his clothing, but his skin tones and everything else are preserved. So I think that up at 100 for this is a little too much. Let's take this down to negative 100, and you'll see that actually blurs out everything around him. It softens him ever so slightly, but again, he is preserved. So we can turn that off and back on. Now, I think for this image, if I pull this up, maybe right about there, I think looks really, really good. So again, turn it off and back on. I really like that. So here's our overall before and after, just using two human aware tools. Now I have a couple of small bonus tips here for you. And one is going to be to crop. So I'm going to crop this using Composition AI. I'll see what the AI recommends, and I'm going to click the Composition AI button, and that's going to give me a suggestion for a crop. Now you can roll with this or you can adjust it as desired. I'm going to bring this over a little bit and put that maybe right about there, and hit return on my keyboard to go ahead and commit that crop. And then the next thing I want to do is there are a couple of people here in the foreground, or in the background rather, that are a little bit distracting, and we're going to get rid of those really quick. So I'll use the erase tool, let that load up. I'm using the bracket key on my keyboard to make that brush size a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to brush over those two people that are there, click erase, and get rid of them. Give that just a moment to apply. There we go. And now to finish this off, let's add a nice big soft vignette to really draw our eye to our subject, which is this person, this man in the image. So I'm going to take my amount slider, move that all the way down to -100. I'm going to make that size a little bit smaller. And I like to move these sliders around. The reason I bring it all the way down to -100 is so I can really see where it's being darkened. And I will adjust that later once I get my vignette placed. I'll pull my feather up so there's a nice smooth transition, and possibly even add a little bit of inner light here. Now I'll click on Choose Subject and click this so my subject is right there in the center of that vignette. And now I can choose the amount slider and bring that back up to a point where it looks natural. Because obviously having it all the way at 100 is not a natural look. So now that we've done that, let's turn that off and back on. And you can see it ever so subtly draws you into the subject. Now let's take a look at our overall before and after, and some really, really quick adjustments, but most of the heavy lifting was done by this Enhance AI and Structure AI. Now, if you look at this and you feel like it's a little bit over the top, you can always go down here to the bottom and adjust this overall amount slider to get your preferred result. So probably right about there, I think looks great. What do you think, Vanelli?
Oh, that's awesome. Yep, and I know that that's a great, Structure AI is such a great tool, and that's another one that you would just jump right to. You would jump to the Structure AI tool, especially for landscape photographers. You know, yes, it's phenomenal, as human-aware technology in it, but landscapes, a lot of times, you know, I'll just grab that, accent AI, make sure that's perfect, boom, and then hit that, and you're good to go. So that's awesome.
Well, I mean, what I love about, Structure AI, if you like that kind of gritty portrait without making your subject's skin look gritty, you can incorporate the Structure AI into a template. And anytime there's a human in that image that you use that template on, it's going to evaluate the image, see that human, and moderate the amount of structure that's added to those skin tones. And it produces such a great result.
And it's so smart that if there isn't a human in the image, it just bypasses it. Just
Exactly.
like Sky AI. You know, you put Sky AI in a template, and there's no sky in an image. Well, it just disables itself, and you can't use it. Or
Same for the portrait tools. If you have a template with portrait settings and you apply it to a landscape that there's no humans in, those settings are just bypassed. Awesome. So I love how smart the software is.
All right. So where can we find more about this software? We have something special coming up.
There is. So next Thursday on June 24th, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to have our second Luminar AI deep dive. And we're going to run for 15 hours straight. Vanelli and Rich Harrington, myself, will be hosting along with a whole bunch of really amazing special guests that will be demonstrating their techniques, their styles, and sharing their images. So it's something you definitely want to tune into. I know most people aren't going to be able to make it for 15 hours straight. It will be recorded. And we're doing that so no matter where you are in the world, you can tune in and hopefully catch at least a piece of it.
Exactly. And keep in mind, we'll also have it recorded.
Yes.
So for those of you that can't stick around for the whole 15 hours, shame on you. No, you get a bucket of popcorn. If you can't stick around, it'll be recorded, and I'm hoping maybe this weekend, soon, they're going to put up the entire schedule of who we're going to be talking with and what are the topics. So
awesome.
That'll be great. Awesome.
All right.
All right. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And we were so glad you could be here with us. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. Or the next time you're here, just chime in. Make sure you just chime in and just let us know you have a question. The first 10 to 15 minutes of every show, we try to address just the issue of what we're dealing with on the show. In this case, it was sharpening. And then after that, you can ask any questions you want, and we'll do our best to answer them. All right? Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next coffee break.